Tracy, you will talk about season 4, the full 4th season of Stranger Things, right? So I'll just do a little preamble. I have covered the first, I should say, the first and 3rd seasons of the show, right? For some reason, I didn't get around to talk about the second one. I don't know what happened, right? I mean, second season was decent, right? For what it is, right? It was a gradual improvement over the first one. For me, though, I still felt like the 3rd season is the best in my opinion. By the story, the pacing, just how everything just kind of ramped up, especially like in the last few episodes, how they kind of just set everything in this mall and how they incorporate the mall into the story, and it's just bumped everything up. The thrills, yeah. Starcourt, right?
Starcourt, yes.
Yeah. It was the scares, the humor, the 80s tropes, the references. Everything was just ramped up though. And yeah, I absolutely loved that season though. So I was really like wondering when we're gonna get season 4 now. And I think we had to wait like how much? 2-3 years I think it was? I can't remember. But basically now,
because it always take long before they come out with a new one.
Yeah.
They take their time with it.
Yeah, but in this case, it was pretty long though. Like I don't know if it was COVID or something, but probably. Point is, all the kid actors pretty much.
Yeah,
they look like young adults now. You know what I mean? Like especially Finn and Millie Brown. Sorry, my God, but they look way different than how they look in season 3. Especially I forget the actor who plays Will Byers. Oh my God,
Noah.
like
Noah Schnapp.
Yeah. I don't even talk about Lucas, right? But yeah, but. All that aside, though, I was, pretty much interested to see this 4th season, right? But then they said, well, they being Netflix say, okay, we're gonna drop the first 7 now, and then the last 2 episodes for for Independence Day weekend. I'm like, what? Okay. So in my head, knowing about how TV shows work, right? I thinking, okay, you split the season up. So I mean, it's going to be like the final season now. So I thinking like say something like a Breaking Bad or Sopranos or Ozark, right? They're gonna do that thing, and they just put the last 2 because it's Netflix and just trying to, kind of trying to build the tension a little bit, and then just drop the last 2 on Independence Day weekend, and somehow it will tie into it or something. I don't know, right? So I literally got chained up now. I was on the impression that this was going to be the final, all to realize, well, it's not. So I was like, okay. And then also too, I'm looking at the run times of these episodes, and I seen like hour and 14 minutes, hour and a half. The final episode is literally 2 hours and 22 minutes straight, including credits.
This is the first half of the final season, right?
No, this is the 4th season, but it's not the final one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was got the sense. Also, it was 2 halves or something like that.
No. Yeah.
They did the first seven episodes of season 4 first, and then part 2, which came out on Friday, which was 8 and 9, but they're long. And then we have a final season, which is season 5, and that's coming out whatever, finish.
Okay. Oh, there's still a season 5 to go. Okay.
Exactly. Hence the confusion, Ricardo. Hence the confusion, right? So yeah, I was just looking at those runtimes. I was like, no, sorry, I had other shows to talk about to check out for this episode here. But thankfully, Tracy, checked them all out. I know you in particular were like real talking about Kate Bush. I would love if it could just kind of go a little bit deeper into the whole Kate Bush, revival, if you will, because I saw the premiere episode. If there's one thing I did, I saw the premiere episode. I heard the song. Song is great, but I'm just really curious as to how that song blew up the way it did. So hopefully you could mention that in this review here. So Tracy, one last thing, keep it spoiler free for me and for those listening, please, because I know a lot of people still haven't checked out the full thing, man. So yeah, Tracy, take it away.
I will. Well, thank you, Sir Bailey. Here's my scene. So first of all, in terms of Kate Bush, Kate is this phenomenal voice movement, and I call her movement. And she has built a whole repertoire of songs, some of which are my personal favorite, like Army Dreamers and Running Up the Hill, which I first heard in my friend Elspeth's car. And there's another one that is relatively obscure, and I say obscure because it's usually just associated for Christmas, and it's December Will Be Magic Again. And of course, Maxwell did this woman's work, but this woman's work, at least from what I remember, this woman's work started off as a Kate Bush song. So Running Up the Hill was one of her songs. I can't remember the exact year. I will go back and go through all of that, but I can't remember the exact year that she came up with it. And Running Up the Hill was this beautifully haunting melody. It was this track that was something that was like between two persons, between two lovers, two persons who would like to exchange the scenarios that they're in, which is that whole line of "if I only could" and make a deal with God and get him to switch our places, that whole running up that hill concept. And it did fairly well. It did fairly well, but you know, as time moved on, people forgot about Kate Bush. I mean, like not everybody, but like I remember going up on Twitter recently and seeing somebody saying, "Who is Kate Bush?" And I wanted to scream, because how do you forget someone like that? But these are the same people who also think that Phil Collins is somebody that Kanye brought out. I don't know. So that has happened. But as is the case with pop culture today, and this is one of the benefits of modern pop culture, is that when you get somebody who is keen on the classics, there is a way that these things get revived. So like when you watch like a James Gunn film like Guardians of the Galaxy, and he brings out Chains, Fleetwood Mac, and that kind of stuff. Everybody suddenly now hears this, and there is a shift. Like, I need to know more about this. I need to know what song this is. Marvel is one of those people that loves to do that. I mean, the trailer for WandaVision hit you with the Platters' Twilight Time, and everybody was like, "What is the song?" And suddenly that became a thing. And in like manner,
especially the age of TikTok, right?
Especially in the age of TikTok, which is another whole vehicle there, because you have a whole bunch of songs that either get remixed or somebody just pulls a clip from a song or even from a film, for you know, and then it blows up. So when the character Max, she is going through a certain, she has a certain amount of pain and a certain amount of scenes that's going on with her, because as we know, coming out of season 3, you know, her brother, vile as he was,
stepbrother Billy,
her stepbrother, you know, Billy,
got killed.
Vile as he was, he got killed, and that weighed on her, and a couple other things was weighing on her. And so the song that she was playing ad nauseum was Kate Bush's "Running Up That Hill," and that, for some reason, it went out into the universe. Huh?
Yeah. No, correct me if I'm right. She's what's the longest gap in a #1 or something like that in the billboards?
I think so.
I think she set some record or something like that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And the fun thing about it is, from what I remember, is that she owns the rights, the masters and everything to it. So when the monies are trickling back in, it is literally, you know what I mean? It's literally just her raking in that. Somebody put up online a little clip of some random dude counting his money and laughing, and they said, "That's Kate Bush right now." So that's Kate. And then in terms of Max, in terms of Stranger Things, it became this cult classic, and everybody was like, "Well, this is something I need to know more about this song." And even Kate herself came out and sent a thank you note, which was on Twitter, a thank you note to the Duffers, saying, you know, "Hey, you know, this little song went out into the world, and I'm glad that you guys like it, and I'm glad that it's getting a resurgence. And as a Kate Bush fan, I legitimately, I couldn't be happier. The first time I got a hold of Kate Bush was like and this is weird for me, was like in the late 90s, for my friend Elspeth, sitting in the back of her car, and she was singing "Running Up That Hill," her little green bug, and we're going up somewhere, and she was singing that. And I was like, "What is that?" And then I forgot about it until one of my ex-bosses, he drove into the compound and he was playing Babushka, which, I mean, if you think "Running Up That Hill" in terms of the video and the song itself is something, wait till you hear the story of the woman who wanted to trick her husband and basically dressed up as somebody else and started screaming "Babushka, Babushka," which is grandmother in Russian, but that's another story. That's Kate Bush. Like, for me, it's Kate Bush and it's Bjork. And if so if you can deal with Bjork, you can deal with Kate. So that's where my Kate Bush education came in. But in terms of how it played out in Stranger Things, I am surprised at how everybody is just pulling towards Kate, and I couldn't be happier. In terms of season 4, so Stranger Things does this thing every season where there are a few breakout stars, a few breakout characters from each of these seasons that pulls you in for something or the other. So like for season 1, it was obviously the 4, but it was really L. And then in season 2, there was L, but it was also more in terms of Hopper.
Yeah.
Season, like Hopper was the main thing for me. Season 3, I'm going back to season 3, and I'm thinking about like Steve, because Steve became this sort of mother hen. I mean, Twitter loves Steve. Like everybody's like, please don't kill Steve.
I think he was trending for some reason. I didn't want to click on it because I have a feeling it spoil stuff.
No. Here's the height. Steve has reached the point where everybody on Twitter is like, dear Duffer Brothers, if you ever kill Steve, I will write, like a very sharp note. Because what are you going to do?
Steve went through hell in the last season, Joe. Don't kill Steve. Don't kill Steve.
I've had my theories as to what people can do with Steve, but we will save that to see if what happens and how it plays out. So season 3 was Steve and his arc. In fact, it was Steve and Dustin. So season 4 comes along, and because Max is the vessel in terms of running up that hill and what it has meant for her, Sadie Sink, Sadie Sink's portrayal of Max during this season pushed her up into being one of the most pivotal breakthrough performances of Stranger Things season 4, and then coupled, of course, with Noah Schnapp's, Will Byers, and one of my personal favorites is Lucas, because tiny spoiler, Lucas and Max are not together anymore because Max broke up with him, and Lucas is doing other things and trying to, build himself up as his own person and not just a member of the 4 of them who play D&D. But also the thing with Stranger Things is that they've always managed to bring in characters who, even though they aren't the main character, they might have, 5 scenes, or okay, let's be real, they might have 15 scenes in a total of how much ever episodes, you still love them. Like Sam, what was it? Joyce's boyfriend in season 3, was it? Season 3?
No, 2. That was Sean Astin. Yeah.
Right, Sean Astin. I keep calling him Sam because forever, Sam. Yeah. And so you have characters like that. You have characters like the guy who plays Eddie in this new season. Eddie is a member of the Hellfires Club, and we will talk about how that for me was a kind of a real hilarity there, because the thing that happens in season 4, you have and again it's D&D characters that are brought to life in terms of how do we name these monsters. So we had the Demogorgon, and now we have Vecna, and Vecna is this hugely powerful monster that is preying on people's fears and their guilt and their depression, and he's using that in order to feast on them and grow stronger and be, a villain as villains are. But there's also these little side pieces, and one of the things that I liked was, so Eddie and the team there, they're part of the Hellfire Club, and they're dealing with D&D, and they've brought in Lucas and Mike and all of them, and but because it's coming down towards the 90s, this is when D&D was rising, and you know how everybody was like, Dungeons and Dragons is satanic, Dungeons and Dragons is bringing in, demon into America and all that kind of stuff, and they really played into that in terms of how people's perceptions were. It sort of reminded me of, Matthew, forgive me, because I lost the train of thought there, but let me just start over.
Go ahead. That's fine.
It's sort of the way how they played into that whole, Dungeons and Dragons is satanic and all that kind of stuff. If you grew up religious, I mean, there was like a list of things that you were told stay away from, because the idea of monsters, that's going to be a whole scene, and they didn't shy away from going into that and explaining it. There is a character in there who sorry to cut you there, dude. I remember, like, I was never into the board game, right? I remember the TV show, the cartoon, right? That used to be on EVM. I remember
people used to have not a lot of people, but even then people used to demonize that. Like, oh my God, demonic stuff in that show,
There is, I mean, like I always make the joke. I mean, it's probably something, but my one joke is whenever people say to you, ever so often on the internet, they ask the question, what is a horror show or something that really messed you up as a child? And I always think about like those religious videos when they showed you, if you play the song backwards, everything goes to hell. And I was like, nah. So they kind of they leaned into that this season in terms of, or rather fueled by this one guy who motivates the whole town, that everybody who partakes in the D&D and by extension the Hellfire Club is bringing demonic activity into Hawkins, and that leads into a cool sub story playing out. But I really feel like season four upped its game. It upped its game not just in terms of the visuals and the character motivations and who is connected to who and what made sense. Because like in one of the earlier seasons, we got introduced to one of Elle's siblings, 8. And that whole storyline was like, okay, but where do we go from there? In this season, we got introduced to a little bit more of Elle's quote-unquote family, and you got to see how it all played out as a big picture. So by the time this season ends, we know that there is, because this is Stranger Things and it leaves you on a cliffhanger, it leaves you with the idea that the worst is yet to come, but at the same point in time, it does not leave you unsatisfied. There are some things that happen during the course of the season. There are some deaths that happen during the course of the season, which I will not talk about, obviously. There are some relationships that are impacted upon within the season that just brought a little bit more of the emotional side to it, that brought a little more depth to it, and I was thoroughly satisfied. Now, I will also say, in terms of the runtime, I feel like the last 2 episodes in the first half and then the 2 episodes in the second half, if Netflix wanted to, they could have bought out a cinema and said, you know what, for this particular reason, we will have it on cinema screens if you all want to go, for those who actually want to go in cinemas and see it. Because it is cinematic, it is long. It's like, it feels almost like a 90-minute movie type something. But the length of it does not shy away from the fact that it is still interesting. It is still popcorn worthy, if you want to put it that way. It is still something that you can be thoroughly invested in. If I wanted to just quickly wrap up and say my MVPs for this season would be obviously Sadie, but also I want to give, I feel like real shout outs must be given to Caleb McLaughlin, who plays Lucas St. Clair. Lucas is, because it's one of those things, I really try not to read too much into it, but it's one of those things where I watched Lucas's character over the last 3 seasons, and his character is good, but I always felt like there could have been more. And this year they really gave Lucas more than just a bite-sized amount of material, and Caleb pulled that off splendidly. Naturally, of course, I joined the rest of Twitter in saying justice for Will's hair, because God alone knows what is going on with Will's hair this season. But those two definitely, and Maya Hawke, who plays Robin Buckley. I've reached a point where I'm like, because we saw her in season 3, and that friendship between between Robin and Steve was really something.
Was great.
But
yeah.
They really expanded on it this year, and even the idea of, because Maya this is a tiny spoiler, Maya is crushing on a girl, but this is a small town in small town America. The wrong move could make a scene. And on top of all of that, you have Vecna coming and destroying people. You got 2 bands of friends separated from each other, and she's now getting to meet Nancy, and there's a whole sort of stuff that's happening there, and I really feel like Maya Hawke brought her A game. I don't know of any, I've never watched Maya in anything else, but I looked at her during season 3 and season 4 of Stranger Things, and I was like, yes. So for me, I thoroughly enjoyed this season of Stranger Things. I feel like I can't wait for the next, I guess, year, 2 years, however long they take before they bring out the final season. And the Duffer Brothers had said that they wanted to. The original plan was to map out a 4 to 5 season event, and if they got the chance, they know where exactly they would go. And Netflix gave them the reins to go on ahead and do 4 to 5 seasons. So the 4th season is wrapped up. There is hell in Hawkins. We won't go into what kind of hell is happening in Hawkins, but it ends in such a way where season 5, it's going to. If you're a fan of pain, get ready for it in season 5. I can't wait. So that's me with Stranger Things.